your officers were voted in. And the Kentish Guards weren't like your typical militia units, especially if you consider New England militia units. They were more of a hangout for the guys that, you know, wanted to go out and drink and just have a good time, and really didn't care about, you know, operations that were going on or about to happen. But your Kentish Guards were more like what your British regular soldiers would have been, very sharp and just not typical. And Nathaniel Greene, he actually walked with a limp. We know that he had a bad knee. We're unsure of why. He could have been a million reasons. I mean, he grew up working in an iron forge. Did he fall out of a tree? It's just completely unknown why. But when he had a bad knee, that caused him to limp. So when he's with his unit, he actually stood out for wrong reasons, not right reasons. It wasn't until later that he actually received his officer's commission. And that was quite a jump. He went from private to brigadier general. We'll pause there for a second. I don't know if you can even hear me. There's our awesome waterfall. Pretty far down there. All right. So the General Assembly of Rhode Island, or the Rhode Island General Assembly, had actually decided to form what was called the Rhode Island Army of Observation. And that was basically Rhode Island's contribution to the Continental Army. And when it came to actually choosing a commander, they chose General Greene. A lot could have made those jump from private to general, but a lot of reasons, excuse me, could have changed that. But that's also kind of unknown and just kind of up to the imagination, I guess you could say. So I stopped here for a second because here's where we're going to go. Actually, yeah, we're going to go down and follow the river here. But if we would have taken that right compared to the left over in that area, we would have actually come out right where I'm pointing there to our cemetery. What we're going to do is actually finish the tour there because we're going to have to loop around and come from behind it. So here we go. This walk's going to be a little bit slow because it's been raining. It's supposed to be snowing at the moment. We're in the low 30s here. I'm glad that it's not, but it's cold enough for me to have my gloves on. But anyway, the leaves are wet and a little slippery, so here we go. But now we're going down a spot that's much more comfortable. Our grounds are open for everybody to see and come play in. We ask that you respect the property, pick up after yourself. Don't do that, please. Yeah, but we actually, the grounds are meant for the public to use. And we know a lot of people use it, and we definitely like seeing the people coming by and checking it out. You know, we feel like there's something to share here, and whoever wants to come see it, come on by. All right, so General Greene, he's now in the Rhode Island Army of Observation, and his first orders are to go to Cambridge in Boston, or just outside of Boston, and meet with General Washington. General Washington is actually not in Cambridge at that time, and General Greene starts his march up. But during his march is when the Battle of Bunker Hill / Breed's Hill happened, so he didn't actually get to see that. He arrived roughly about 2 weeks afterwards, and Washington another 2 weeks after that. So Washington, when he arrives, you know, there's a lot of points of order to take care of right away, but he's not interested in that. What he wants to see is his army. Who does he have here? So he goes and he surveys all of his troops, and he is not happy with what he sees. There's actually a pretty famous quote that I'm going to paraphrase coming out of this. That is, "Are these the men to which I'm to defend America with?" You know, he wasn't saying that because he was excited he finally has people that he needs. He's saying that but because he's scared. We're not prepared to take on the strongest army in the world, let alone, you know, we're not even prepared to take on a much smaller and weaker army. We are that smaller and weaker army. However, as he's surveying his troops, he goes around to General Greene's camp, and he is completely impressed immediately. Everything that General Greene had learned in the Kentish Guards, he had actually put into play right here, or as you say, in Cambridge, and with his camp with the Rhode Island Army of Observation. So right there, and immediately, him and Washington have become friends, and even family. He was in his inner circle and placed immediately upon the War Council. He was one of the 4 original War Council members. Another slow spot with some wet leaves, so there we go. Not too bad. So by the way, this river that we're walking next to over here, this is the Patuxent River, running through most of Rhode Island and a little bit into Connecticut as well. We're not too far from the Connecticut line right here. We're almost, I guess you could say, smack dab in the middle of Rhode Island. So Coventry is a good place if you want to see a lot of things in Rhode Island. And there are a lot of things to see in Rhode Island. We actually hold over 20% of all National Historic Landmarks in this smallest state that we are. One of those, by the way, is the Nathaniel Greene Homestead, if you didn't figure that part already. So the Army moves in. You know, Washington takes everybody from, well, takes most people from Cambridge, leaves a lot there, and moves them around into Dorchester and into Roxbury, right up to the neck. Boston, especially at that time compared to now, was a very small, almost an island. The only land route was Roxbury Neck, and that was actually very it's basically like walking through this trail I'm walking through right now at the tip of it. It's a lot different now. A lot's been filled in, but you know, it was easily to stop any land route from bottlenecking, because of bottlenecking. But basically what Washington was doing was surrounding the harbor of Boston and placing a siege onto the British. And that had actually set for a stalemate for almost a whole year. After that year, during that year, Washington commissioned Henry Knox, colonel at this time, will become general at some point, and even Secretary of War when Washington becomes president. He commissioned them to go to Fort Ticonderoga in upstate New York. And that place is right where Lake Champlain and Lake George meet each other. Very pretty area. But a good key to the Hudson River, which plays a role throughout the whole Revolution. But he sends them to Ticonderoga to pick up the artillery, guns, weapons, and powder that's left there after Ethan Allen and Colonel Benedict Arnold had actually captured Ticonderoga earlier on. So in the middle of winter, you know, I just heard a nice hawk. In the middle of winter, Knox took his company all the way from Boston to Fort Ticonderoga to pick these up and then bring them back. I'm kind of downplaying it a lot as like, oh, no big deal, not that, you know, don't even worry about it. But it was huge. It was in the middle of winter. You're going through the Berkshire Mountains, which are in western Mass, and plus you're going across large rivers and lakes as well. If you've actually ever traveled in Mass, the Mass Pike, which is Interstate 90, is actually the route that Henry Knox took. So that's an interesting tidbit. But Knox completed it. Oh, this boardwalk we're on. Oh, there's a couple deer right there. Hi guys, didn't mean to scare you. Oh, a little one guy too. All right. This boardwalk here was actually built by the Boy Scouts because where we're walking is typically a very swampy area, and they wanted to help people get around it back here. So we definitely appreciate that, and it looks really good, and it's been here for a couple years now. So thank you again. So Knox arrives back. You know, nobody actually expected that to happen, but he did. And when he gets back, they immediately, Washington starts fortifying Dorchester Heights and bringing up, using the team of oxen to actually bring the the cannon up to the top of it. And this is a very strong feat right here, considering that he actually completed it. When he completed it, and General Howe, who just took over for General Gage on the British side, saw what was up there and basically left town through some negotiations, a couple trying to fire upon Dorchester Heights without being able to make it. But they had to leave town. It was very clear they had zero chance of actually defending themselves from what was set up right there. General Howe had even said, Washington has made his men do in one night what I can make my men do in 3 months. Another paraphrase, it's a little bit wrong there, but hopefully you get the gist of what I was trying to say. We just turned around, by the way, because that swampy area, here we are. There's not really a good way to get across to the trail over there. So we're gonna backtrack and go up a little bit, up the hills right there, and continue on with the trails. So General Howe takes, all of his men, and he takes about 2,000 loyalists from Boston and brings them up to Halifax. As the king's subjects, the king felt it was up to him to protect his subjects. So that was actually, that story always surprises me as being completely unexpected. Hey, look, more deer over there. That's so cool. So he takes off to Halifax and sits dormant for about a year. Washington's going over and trying to figure out, well, what's the next step? What is he going to do? Where do we need to prepare ourselves?